Howdy, partner. Welcome to one of the most northern parts of the United States of America. Travel with me upriver as we talk to a bunch of ladies and fellers and they share their tales of wit and wisdom. That's right, it's time again for Skagit Storytellers.
With Liz Duffy. Okay, so I'm trying to think back to when we met. I think I met you at Lyman when Cody had you on in his like songwriter series. He'd have like, he still has like songwriters come on once a month on a Friday.
Yeah, that was last year on my birthday actually.
Oh,
and
when
I think
was that?
The first time
When's
we
your
met,
birthday?
the February 16th.
Okay, got it.
So I think we met the first time briefly in the flurry of the afterward of Bigfoot Fest.
Oh yeah, because you were
2023.
you played at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I was hanging out there too. So your 39th birthday, I met you roughly around then. Now, is that roughly also when you started playing music in this area?
I started really playing music in the area actually at Lyman in June of 2023.
Okay.
So it was just kind of I've always loved music. I dabbled a little bit, played at a couple bars when I lived in Louisiana, and I said, you know what, I want to start doing this. I want to transition out of the workforce eventually.
Oh, I just remembered that I talked to you at a picnic table at Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I remember this now. I'm
Bree
sorry.
and I,
Because I think I remember thinking, oh, like you just started? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was my first, like, quote unquote, big event or something.
What made you start?
My dad. I always tell people I'm kind of living, but my dad's no longer here. He passed away 2018. And he was always, up until he couldn't, not necessarily a singer-songwriter, but a strummer like me. I'm not a guitar player. I make noise because other people aren't with me to do so. And I've always said I'm kind of now living my life vicariously through my dad because he wasn't a guy I have a lot of regrets, but the one thing I always remember him saying was that he wished he had stuck with music and taken it more seriously and not just a free drink at the bar to play and stuff like that. So that's one thing where I said, you know what, if I can do this and not work a normal job, that's the goal, and that's what I'm doing. So.
And you said he passed away in 2018. Was he sick for a while? Or
he
was
was
it sudden?
Yeah, he kind of hid cancer from us from a little bit, which is easy to do when your son lives in Louisiana. So
so he was living here.
He was living here, and it was we went from talking all the time to it getting a little further in between, and then hardly ever, and then finally my stepmom called me and said, hey, I don't know if you know what's going on, but that test he said he had last year was bad. I said, oh, okay, well, and then it probably wasn't a couple months later she called me and said, you need to come up here. So it's one of those things. He did it on his off time. He was what he called an overglorified janitor, but he was the head of maintenance at a retirement community, and we'd always fiddle around when I'd come back off a leave or something like that and play guitar for the old folks in there, and that was always fun. But he did stuff like that in Eagles clubs up in Canada and moose lodges and stuff like that on his off time, and he would always get really dressed up and wear the slacks and the partially unbuttoned starched white shirt, you know. So he had the big, unfortunately I don't have the hair on top, but he had beautiful, like, you know, I had always said that we must have Italian somewhere in our family because he had that big swoop Sinatra thing going on.
I'll just Photoshop some hair.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'll put the hat on when you take a picture.
So when your stepmom, what's her name?
Judy. When
Judy gave you the call, like, hey, you know, you got to come up. How much time was it?
I don't remember. It wasn't long between that call and me tangibly being up here. But I got here on Monday and he passed away Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And we were talking before this about kind of hunting the good stuff and finding the silver lining. And I've always kind of forced myself, I think, to believe that he waited, and that although he's gone, the silver lining is that I was able to be here. And I think he did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Knowing the strength of the human soul. I honestly believe that with all my heart. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I believe in higher things frequencies and such. And I think he hung on. And so I've always just kind of, rather than look back on this sadness of holding someone's hand as they pass away, looking at the fact that I'm grateful that I was able to be there.
I always think about that too. My mom passed away when I was 23. And I think about how many people just have a mom that they just struggle with every day. You know, they have a bad relationship and they never get closure with them. And they're always, you know, at odds. And I think, God, I had like a really, really good mom for 23 years. Yep. I am so grateful for that. And I get to tell all of her stories, you know, and your story about, you know, your dad hanging on, it reminded me, my little sister, we were all in the room for weeks when my mom was sick. And then we left the room and it was just my sister in the room. And I believe the story goes, she asked my mom, will you be my guardian angel? Mm-hmm. And then my mom just took her last breath, like right after. Yeah. Oof. It was incredible. I think, God, I wonder how many times my sister thinks about that. Like that's, you couldn't get better than that.
I hold on to those things. You know, unfortunately I've dealt with between the military and just life in general. And, you know, part of life is dying, whether we like it or not, or believe it or not, it is. And, my mom passed away my senior year of high school, and I beat myself up the weeks after that, being a senior in high school, of giving her shit about the stupid things that moms, quote unquote, stupid things. Now that I'm a father, you know, it's not stupid to look after your kids, but you know, just the stupid idiosyncrasies that parents have. Don't forget your jacket at the football game. Oh,
then you roll your eyes.
Yeah. And... okay, Mom, I'm not wearing my jacket.
Up,
I got this new shirt I want everybody to see.
Yeah.
So I beat myself up for weeks after that. Like, man, all those times as a teenager, I was a teenager and rolled my eyes and thought things were stupid. And man, I could have done better.
But at the same time, if something happened to you,
yep,
you know, you would not be focusing on those times your kids rolled their eyes at you. You're like, I don't even care about that. I'm thinking about the one time that we walked down the street at sunset and held hands.
And my dad was the one that said that through his chaos during that time, you know, losing his wife of 25 plus years. And he said, you know, you're focusing on the wrong shit. What did you say to her last? Which he knew that she passed away making us a breakfast in the morning while we were both still asleep.
Like she had a heart attack?
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, wow.
Just dropped.
Whew.
And inevitably he knew. My parents and I were really close. I'd go to friends' houses and stay the night, and I'd always call my parents. I wasn't shy to say I love you over the phone. My parents were both from the South. I grew up with that hospitality, and you just love. And don't be ashamed of it. And so he knew the last thing I told her before I went to bed was, I love you. And he said, hang on to that. That's the last thing. Not the you rolling your eyes about her telling you to bring your jacket to the football game. I said, oh, okay. So that kind of changed my perspective moving forward. And that, honestly, that little piece of advice through the adversity that he was going through really kind of paved the way for my mentality moving forward, especially in the military. Losing somebody is, you can't focus on the tragedy. You have to focus on the before.
Well, and you said too, you know, I'm thinking about the things that change you. Losing a parent early changes you, you know, all that kind of grief. Having a kid changes you. I've never been in the military, but being in that, I'm assuming changes you a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So you're listing all of these things, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, Charlie,
there's been a lot of...
You've changed so much.
I was really anxious to do this podcast because, not to stick up for myself, but just I don't give people an inside look because of all those changes and stuff like that. Because in all honesty, I've met very few people who know themselves. And I know that I don't. I'm still figuring it out. We were just talking before we came in here.
We don't know what we're doing.
No, I don't. As my mom would say, half the time I don't know whether to shit or wind my watch. And, you know, I'm just figuring.
Is that a Southern saying? I've never heard that. She
said all sorts of stupid, one of her, that and slicker than owl snot on a doorknob, Christ on a cracker, balls on a bullfrog. Where all these things that.
Please say these are now song lyrics.
Do
you have a song?
Not yet, but
like,
it's
Dear Mom.
I'm
and then
working
it's
on
just...
it. I'm working on it. That's segueing into songwriting is another thing. It's insane the amount of things that you pull when you just go for a drive or something, and that's my biggest thing. My closest similarity to Willie Nelson, one of my idols, is that watching all the Willie Nelson stuff I can get my hands on or eyes on is going for a drive. I just go for a drive. That's how I reset. That's just leave me alone. Let's turn the radio off. I go, into the mountains, or I'll go to the ocean. And that's one of the beauties about living here, is that if you want to, you can do it all in the same day. You can put your toes in the snow up at Mount Baker and drive down the same day and put your toes in the water in Bellingham Bay or Squalicum Bay.
Yeah, we're really lucky here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You were born in Louisiana, and then you made your way up here.
I was born here.
Oh, you're born here. Sorry.
Born here,
okay.
Made my way down there.
So you're born February 16th. Let me do the math. 1981?
85.
85. Oh, my God. I'm so sorry.
Super Mario year.
Wait, I'm 45, not 40. Sorry. Wait, Super Mario year?
Yep. 85 is when Mario came out.
That's when it came out?
Yep.
You're
Yes.
born here?
Bellingham.
And so where'd you go to school?
Nooksack. The big town of Nooksack.
So did you live in Everson?
I did.
Okay.
I hated a lot about going to Nooksack, but looking back, and I like to think wiser now, it is cool and rare that I think we graduated with 84 people, and somewhere between 78 and 81 of us went to school together, K through 12.
Oh, wow.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
And so I hated that as a kid, but then my 20th reunion in 2023, it was all like, hey, you can point exactly that person out and remember them the same.
Exactly, yeah. Was being from a small town, was that sort of like incentive to like, I'm going to get out? Or did you, I also went overseas teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was partially, I think if my mom didn't pass away, I probably would have stayed.
Right.
But when I graduated about a year after she passed away. I was like, see ya.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Korea to teach, and I taught in New Zealand, or I bartended in New Zealand, and I taught overseas in the Middle East, and taught in Korea again. And, I look back and I don't think I would have done that if she hadn't passed away. So
Same.
That happened to you too?
Yeah, it wasn't, because
did she pass away your senior year?
Senior year, yeah, like right in the middle.
Wow.
So she passed away in right before my birthday too. It was, I think
wow.
it was February 3rd or right after my birthday, because she was in the hospital. But I had always kind of imagined myself prior to senior year being someone that just stuck around. Senior year, I started getting into theater and stuff a lot, which really shaped the ability to be a musician. And speak to people, really.
Like, what kind of plays would you do? Something embarrassing is coming up.
I am most famous, small town famous for my, I played the sadistic dentist in Little Shop of Horrors.
Really?
Yeah. So it was so crazy too, because I came back, I graduated in 2003. I came back from Afghanistan in 2006, and my dad was getting remarried, and so I wore my dress uniform, and I went to the coffee shop before the wedding, and there's this girl in there, and she says, "Are you the guy that played the dentist?" I'm like, Jesus. I'm also the guy that's in the Army now. Like, come on, look at these medals. Like, and I had a crush on this girl too, so it was like,
extra hard.
Man. Yeah, I'm that dude.
So you thought you'd always stick around.
Yeah.
Your mom passed away.
Senior year, it's kind of all that stuff just kind of started opening up kind of new hopes, I guess. And one of those hopes was acting. It was never musically, I didn't know how to play guitar until maybe 10 years ago. Self-taught on YouTube and stuff like that. So music wasn't a thing. As a matter of fact, I was so insecure and shy about singing in front of people in my regular voice that for the audition of Little Shop of Horrors, I sang "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" like Marilyn Monroe. And the reason I was so weird and stuff, that was the reason I got that role, the comedic role.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it started opening new horizons, and then I thought more and more about getting out. Every generation of my family was military, and of course, we went through 9/11 in school and stuff like that. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do that. I'm going to do that. Why not? And so I remember vividly coming home one day, and my dad was in the tub. He'd always, after work, never failed. He'd grab 2 Miller High Lifes, a Dean Koontz book, and lay in the tub for 45 minutes and smoke cigarettes. Smoke cigarettes, read, and drink beer. So I knocked on the door, and I backed in, and I said, hey, I need to tell you something, but I really don't want to make eye contact with you right now. He said, okay, what's going on? I said, I joined the Army. I leave in a couple months. Okay. Well, give me a few minutes. I'll get out. And so I told him the extent of what I was doing and everything like that. But same thing. I wouldn't have, I don't think my mom would have allowed me to join the Army. It doesn't matter my age. I can make my own decisions. No, that's not how it works when your mom's from Arkansas and your dad's from Texas. It's you're listening to your mother.
And why did you choose that branch?
I had the most ability to choose what I did. And at that time, kind of riding off the red, white, and blue, running through everybody, patriotism, Toby Keith on the radio every day. We were still so much gung-ho about fighting and getting in the fight. And I had made up my mind that I didn't want to be somebody that wasn't in the fight. I wanted to be in the middle of the stuff, which is opposite of what you would want to hear from your 18-year-old as a parent.
I was just thinking, how old are your kids now?
I have an 18-year-old.
Okay.
I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 13-year-old.
Oh my gosh. So if any of them said,
I would be pissed.
Hey, Dad.
I would be so mad.
Because
if they did,
you know exactly what they're going in for.
If they came to me with a plan of doing what I should have done, which was join the Air Force or the Navy and get some sort of technical skill that translates into the outside world, not in the front lines, oh, hey, good for you. Right on. Now, if my daughter or son came up to me and said, I'm going to be a forward observer like I was, no.
What does that mean?
So
I'm Canadian, so I don't know anything about
okay.
this.
my job, when you boil it down, so I'll tell you a real quick funny story about my job in the military. So it is, by nomenclature, a 13 Fox, or a fire support specialist is what its technical name is. So I join the Army, and I do all the in-processing, and I go down to Seattle, and I stay in the hotel overnight. Next day, I'm flying out to Oklahoma, and I'm going to boot camp. At this point, I'm still not entirely sure what my job entails, because they don't really tell you that. I looked at a $40,000 bonus and all this stuff, and I went, yeah, I'll take it. And I'm going to go to Afghanistan and stuff. Yeah. Okay, cool. Oh yeah, I'll do that. I kind of thought I was going to be something like a firefighter. No. So the day I found out what my job was going to be in the military was the day before I went to boot camp. I went downstairs at the hotel, and all the in-processing military, all 5 branches had this room that we could go in, get snacks, watch movies, play video games. And there's this old crusty bastard behind the counter. And he said, join the military? Yes, sir. Oh, fuck that. Don't call me sir. That was my dad. Okay. Ron? Is that it? Okay. He said, do you know what you're doing? I said, well, fire support specialist. He said, oh, fister. What? Fist. Forward observer. I went, oh, yeah. Just so happened at that time they're playing We Were Soldiers, a Vietnam movie in the background, and it just divine intervention so happened to be at a part that he needed me to see. He said, turn around. You seen this movie before? Oh yeah, definitely. My dad was Vietnam vet. We love this movie. He said, yeah. Anyways, you see the guy with the antenna? I said, yeah. And this guy at this point in the movie calls in a bomb. And this just huge explosion, Hollywood explosion, fire everywhere, bodies flying. He said, "That's you." I said, "Oh, okay." And sure as shit, that was me. And so my job was to kind of travel on the ground with infantry or forward elements and either designate previously targeted things or things that arrive situationally. If we start getting shot at, it was my job to suppress that, whether it was with mortars, artillery, or airstrikes. It doesn't really translate to the civilian world.
Yeah.
I got out of the Army after 12 years going, well, where am I going to get a job blowing shit up? Like,
yeah,
avalanche intervention or something,
like I'm really good at decision making.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. All the stereotypical military traits of somebody that did well in the military. It was like, I can show up on time. I'll try really hard. Like, it's like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
The military's great. But going back to that, if it were my kids and they said that, if I would be proud no matter what. In some aspect, I would be happy no matter what. But if they came to me with a plan going into something technical that translates and they're using that as a stepping stone, awesome. Good for you. That's the smart thing to do. Listening to Toby Keith and wanting to go to Afghanistan and blow things up doesn't translate.
But now that you know,
yes,
like but also if you had a kid that you're like, all he wants to do is blow shit up.
Yeah. That's my son.
No matter what.
That's my son. So I wouldn't be surprised in a couple of years.
So when your dad was sick, did you guys have any conversations about music? Was he like, "Hey man, you're really good at this"? Yeah,
he said, "Do it." I said, "Do what?" He said, "The music." Because he was, at this point when I got there, he was in and out of lucidness, really. And, he kind of popped to and lit a cigarette and with a oxygen tank next to him. And he said, "Do it." I said, "Do what?" He said, "Music." So what about music, Dad? What are you talking? At that point, he had only ever saw me play one time. And that was, my friend was playing a bar in Louisiana. And during a break, I played a song. And he said, do the music. I wish I did. I met your mom at a bar after a gig, and after that we were so worried about burning down the roads that I didn't care anymore. I thought it was a game. It's not if you do it right. I said, okay, cool. And it took me hitting rock bottom in Louisiana after he passed away to make some decisions and say, what do I want to do with my life? I need to make money. So what can I do that's not something I really want to do, but I can make good money doing? And I went into HVAC. After 12 years and being very disciplined and stuff like that, I'm still not one to hold back saying something to somebody.
Because maybe when you're overseas and you have a mission,
mm-hmm.
there's no time to like be polite or walk around someone's
and
feelings.
People weren't worried about that.
Yeah.
And at that time, that whole shift in mentality of the super sensitive, easily offended is when I made the decision to get out, because it's not. And still in my mind, when I raise my voice, I tell people I'm not trying to yell. I'm passionate about what I'm saying. And it's still ingrained in me that if you don't listen, you literally could die. Don't take the time to be offended by it. Don't worry about someone raising your voice. Just do what they're telling you. Move. And that's just forever ingrained in you when you go through certain circumstances. And still to this day, I'm much better at it now through meditation and marijuana. But it's one of those things where you just you pick your battles and stuff like that. But yeah, the world is completely different in the military, and it is completely different now, I'm sure, than when I was there.
Yeah.
And
did you always know that you wanted to come back up here?
No. I actually didn't want to come back up here.
So you came up when your dad remarried?
I came back on leave. Every time I got 30 days of leave or something, I'd come up here. And I loved it for 2 weeks. And then the last 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm ready to get back down south. I miss the heat, and now I hate the heat. I love being able to wear a denim jacket or a sweater or a hoodie or something like that. And it's like down there, if it gets below 70 degrees, people are putting hoodies on.
We went to New Orleans for our honeymoon, and I think it was probably mid 70s, maybe even like low 80s. And we loved it, because it was July, third week of July. And everyone's like, oh, it's so cold here. We're like, this is cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was nice though, because we went during the week. It wasn't very busy because it was so cold. And then the last day we were walking around, it was Friday, and started to heat up a bit. And it was Friday, and we don't drink. So we're just like, I'm not really a fan of like just people walking around, just drinking all day. And so I'm like, I'm glad that we're leaving today.
Yeah.
It was a good day to leave.
It's weird how different, just geographically and regionally, how different things can be, even if you just look at the state between Western and Eastern Washington. But Louisiana, I remember one of those times coming back off a leave, and we're at a bar in Everson, the bar.
There's
Everson.
one bar there.
Yeah. And it was always a goal of mine when I was a kid, like, I'm going to go to Bobby Lee's when I'm old enough and have a beer with my dad. And so we're sitting there, and one pitcher turned into 5, and I put a cigarette in my mouth, and this guy comes up to me and goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, well, I was about to smoke a cigarette. What are you doing? He said, you can't smoke in here. Oh, really? Okay. All right. So I grabbed my beer, took my cigarette, walked out the front door to the little gated thing they had there. Yeah. Put the cigarette back in my mouth, lit it. The same guy comes outside and goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm smoking a cigarette, dude. He said, yeah, you can't have your beer out here. I was like, well, what the hell can you do? So no, I never wanted to come back up here. I loved the South, but it was, like I said, going through certain circumstances. I had a particularly toxic relationship that put me in a bad state of mind. And
in Louisiana?
In Louisiana.
Was that your rock bottom?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was full on freaking. I never did hard drugs. I've always scared away from that due to my sibling. But yeah, I mean, I'm working on a song right now about being held up. And I was in this diviest of dive motels for a week while I was waiting to fly up to Washington. And I'd just buy a bottle of vodka every night and drink myself to sleep watching shitty cable.
Yeah. And
it was like, what, even in that state, enjoying drinking like that, internally, I could hear myself like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Well, and that brings me to what you posted about the other day. And I followed up with it because when we had first talked about you coming on here, it was like early February, and you said, hey, can we like drink on this podcast? I go, yeah, sure, of course. I'll grab an NA and let's drink. And then, because I've been sober for about 7.5 years, and then you just posted like 2 days ago, I'm 2 months sober. And I was like, what? And I looked back, I'm like, wait, you wrote me 2 months and 1 week ago saying, can I drink on the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what happened there?
Just kind of a revelation. And obviously, alcohol is a stupidity-inducing substance.
But that's the thing, is I'm pretty sure everyone knows that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So.
And it got to the point where both of us, my fiance and I, were just like, dude,
I met her too. What's her name?
Bree,
yeah.
She's taking care of the little Jack Russell puppy that we just got.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I have a love-hate relationship with that thing. We both just decided, like, what are we doing? Like, we're both very hard-headed, kind of self-driven people. So in our minds, it was, we're allowing something that isn't worth anything to control us.
And you know it.
And you know it.
You're fully aware.
The money is like, you play, regardless of what people think, I'm here to tell you, the musicians don't make a shit ton of money unless you're booking stadiums. When you're booking little taverns here and there and pubs and your ambiance noise behind dinner or something like that, you're not making thousands, millions of dollars. So, you're lucky enough to have people that throw some cash in your bucket, and then you're immediately turning around, and although you're supporting the business that you're at, you're drinking it.
Yeah.
It's like, why? That's dumb. Why am I not saving up for my dream guitar? And it was one of those things where it just clicked. Like, I'm done with it.
Yeah. Do you have friends who have who've gotten sober?
I have a few, but they're kind of back and forth. They're it's kind of like
they take a dry January.
Yeah, it's kind of like Catholicism down in New Orleans. It's like, I'm Catholic, but I'm going to do, I get the ash and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's I've had friends that are sober. I've got after I posted that, it was kind of segued into several conversations with a couple of guys I was in the Army with that are sober and have been for a couple of years, and I think really seeing the downfall of so many of my friends with alcohol and myself. You realize, while I never took advantage of drinking heavily during playing so that I could do the obvious well, I did, I had my several drinks before, and then I would sit there and have multiple. Not only is that stupid, have to drive home or get a ride after that if Bree's with me. It was just dumb. I'm like, what am I doing? Why do I need it? And realistically, the reason I stuck with it as long as I did after playing music was I truly believed I needed it. I had to have it. And I remember telling Bree, probably 4 days after we decided to quit, I had a gig and I was pacing around the house and being abnormal to my already OCD self of getting stuff ready for a gig. She said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I don't know if I can do this without alcohol." She said, "Do what?" I said, "Sing." "Why not?" I said, "Because I never have. Never."
Wow.
Even by myself. Never. I never have. I said, "I don't know if I can." And it took 4 or 5 songs and stuff like that. And then I felt better than ever. And it was a 3-hour gig. I never took a break. I stayed up there the whole time. I felt good. I didn't slur any words. I didn't forget things. I was fully there.
Yeah.
And that first gig solidified, okay, yeah, you don't need this shit. And so I tell people all the time, I'm a huge advocate for, obviously, most of the places I serve revolve around selling alcohol. I don't try to deter people, but what I do tell people is whatever, like the post said, whatever you think you can't do without it, you can't.
Yeah.
The totality of awareness, I guess, is you don't see it at the time, but I try to pay special attention to everybody when I play. I make it a point after I play to go up and shake everybody's hand or give them a wave and thank them for hanging out when they didn't have to. But during playing, you notice a lot more things. You kind of key in more. And I've never, besides playing at the theater or something like that, I never make a set list. I base it off of, I play a couple warm-up songs, get the voice gravelly, and then I go from there. And I'll start with something, and it's kind of a probe. Like, okay, how is this crowd at this time, because it's always changing, going to interact to this type of music?
Zach Michaud is really good at that too.
Right.
Yeah. I see a lot of similarities with you and him.
And it's just one of those things. I'm firmly against set lists because it always changes. You never know. You gotta feel it out. And so that is a lot easier now. And it's also
figuring out the vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also created, I've always thought I was selfless, but it honestly makes you more selfless because you're not drinking. And while you're drinking, you always have great ideas. And, if you're drinking, even if you're not hammered or something while you're playing and you don't have a set list, you are going to play towards what you want to hear at the time. So I say that it makes you more selfless because you're truly just catering to who's there instead of yourself. You're just the messenger.
Do you tell stories before you play?
I tell stories throughout. I try to make them quick. It depends. It depends on the setting. That's another thing. There are some places where you can tell stories and they're going to be well received or even heard. And there's other places where it's just like, do the thing, music man. Like,
you're
make
the
noise.
jukebox.
Yeah, make noise. I used to tell a lot more, and Bree's the first one that lets me know, like, hey, that's you. That's why people liked you, and not the only reason, but excuse me. Do the stories. And she'll, when she's in the crowd, if I'm lacking, she'll be like, stories.
Does she come to all your shows?
No.
Oh.
She comes.
Well, I guess you have 4 kids, so she. Well,
we don't have kids together.
Oh, okay.
But we stay busy, and we have the new pup.
Oh, the puppy, yeah.
She's in school full time. I'm in school full time, so it's like she's got a shit ton of homework to do.
So what are you guys taking?
She is going to school for chemical dependency counseling. Oh. Which she would be awesome at because she's just has the motherly intuition of nobody I've ever seen. And I am doing audio and music production currently. However, I'm switching to digital videography. So I like we were talking about degrees, they don't really do shit for you, right? And I know that. So I'm utilizing my GI Bill, and I'm doing a little bit of both. This particular school that I'm going through sends you everything. It's called a project launch box, and they send you everything. So my degree, currently they sent me a brand new MacBook, a condenser mic, an instrument mic, a 8-channel mixer interface, like all this stuff, right?
You can't see this, listeners, but my jaw just dropped to the floor.
Yeah, and so they send you all
amazing.
this stuff. So I'm doing the bulk of it, and then I'm switching over to videography. And they send you.
They'll send you everything.
They send you this brand new Sony cinema camera, and all this stuff. So I'm taking advantage of what I have with the GI Bill and getting a little bit of both, knowing that ultimately I will get a degree, but it really doesn't mean shit. The ultimate goal is to become more self-efficient. I don't have to rely on. I don't want to have to rely on somebody to record quality things. I don't want to have to rely on somebody to videotape me or pay somebody to video me. I can do it.
Yeah.
I can teach those that are close to me now, like, hey, set this up here and do this, or hey, can you make sure this doesn't go above this level or something like that, instead of paying $1,000 for a 5-minute product. I researched it, and I asked them point blank. I said, do I have to give all this crap back if I change degrees? They're like, no, it's yours. I'm like, so in May, when I change degrees, I'll get another launch box for that degree. They're like, yeah. I said, and I can keep it. Yep.
So you can basically switch your degree all the time, and the GI Bill will pay for it.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It runs out, but I have enough in there to get a bachelor's.
Yeah.
At minimum, associates in both of these things, which is realistically what I will do. They told me I can switch in May, and I said, okay, so I can't switch until May. Can I switch anytime after May? They're like, yeah. I said, okay, so it's more beneficial and logical to get my associates in the audio in August and then switch. At least that way I'm getting something out of it.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean anything to me, but maybe it will to somebody else.
Yeah.
Having something in a frame. So yeah, I have a plan, but I don't. And who knows if I'll be able to use it, because apparently there's an asteroid heading towards us. So
is there? Yeah. I don't watch the news.
I try not to. But
who's president? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
I know at least that.
As a vet, I've never. People have always asked me about the kneeling during the national anthem. If you want to do that, do it. That's your right. I didn't go into the military with the intention of fighting for specific people. I was doing it for everybody, for me, for everybody, anybody, especially the guys next to me. And I just think it's, for instance, like the President's Day protests the other day. I'm like, you realize that President's Day is not about the sitting president. Go to Washington, D.C. and protest. that will enact change, maybe nationally. Socially, we've transitioned to hating on each other for differences politically or ideologies. It's like, who cares? Good for you. You disagree with me. Right on. That's your right.
Okay, so I guess I know that you post on Instagram and Facebook.
So I have a website specifically for those older folks that only do websites, and I only post my schedule on it. Recording music is like one of the very few things that's had zero or minimal inflation over the years. Like, it doesn't cost much more now to record a song than it did when Dylan recorded in 62.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And we don't take advantage of it because
I never thought about that.
I think probably subliminally why I shy away from recording so much is because there's so much out there that it's like you're literally it's like throwing a rock into an ocean.
Got it. But it's not really about them.
Right.
It's about you.
This specifically is kind of like and I by no means want to become like this Toby Keith type. I love Toby Keith, but singing about the red, white, and blue and veteran injustice, that's not going to be every song. But this particular song, I just always had all these things written and these ideas and these feelings of kind of my attempt to have things and people not forgotten. So I've always told people it's not necessarily a thumbs up to Uncle Sam, but it's a different finger.
You choose your finger. Okay.
Well, I became what I thought to be a man under a foreign sky. Voting age just to be a boy in control of another life. Ejecting pieces of myself at the casings left behind. Adapting to a strange new world that's quickly becoming mine. So I'll fly away, my young boy, come back a better man. Trust me, son, I've been in your shoes. Sincerely, Uncle Sam. Sincerely, Uncle Sam. When worlds collide, it's an alien sign of evil at our door. We're in the past, our flag's half-mast to what it was before. And a baby cries, the shrapnel flies from the reckoning that's in store. Well, just fight the fight and pay that tax, or you can find the door. So take a knee, catch your breath, become one with their plan. Trust me, son, I've been there before. Sincerely, Uncle Sam. Well, 50 stars and unseen scars underneath an Afghan sky. Reliving of the days before lead to sleepless nights. And the medals we once dreamed of don't seem to shine so bright. Just another story of a man who fought another's fight. So wait in line, take these pills, come visit when you can. He said wait in line, take these pills, come visit when you can. And he said, thank you for your service, sincerely, Uncle Sam. Well, thank you for your service, sincerely, Uncle Sam.
That was great.
Thank you.
Is this one of the songs you think you'll put on the EP?
Absolutely. Yeah. This one is special to me because, like I said, it goes out to, I've lost way too many friends through the lack of accountability of taking care of people after the fact. Not only accountability of, I believe, the government's responsibility through the VA, but individual responsibility and the soberness thing not being a thing, and not just alcohol, because the line of stand in line, wait in line, take these pills is the VA experience. I'm drug free in regard to PTSD medication. I use marijuana supplementally and ashwagandha and stuff like that, lion's mane. But I have no interest in literally having 5 different medications thrown at me.
And is that the go-to?
Oh yeah, that's just the, certain doctors are certain doctors, and the one I was seeing most recently wasn't like that. But a majority of them were, all right, let's tackle it with addiction. And when you boil it down, it's all right, let's fight fire with fire, essentially, except the fire you're fighting it with is worse.
Yeah.
And I've lost a lot of friends that way, that this isn't working. This cocktail that you have me wait in line for isn't working. And they give up.
Yeah.
And so that's the driving force behind that song, is really the importance of not forgetting those guys or gals.
Do you feel that you've replaced your drinking with anything else specifically?
Music. Yep.
Do you feel like you're booking more shows? You're writing more?
I'm way more concentrated. I'm ahead of the game. I'm booked. My weekends are booked pretty much through June. That was not, I played a lot of shows last year. I went from playing my first year technically was 23. So I played June through December. I played like 40 something. And then last year I played 120 something.
Whoa.
And then this year is going to be more.
That's great.
It's like in different places and different people. And
yeah.
So it's been, this year I quit in December drinking. And this year it's been all about like, okay, strategically planning things like road trips and things to where we can just convert the van and get in and not worry about people. Like, let's get the dog, get the cat, let's go. Let's play music. Where are we playing? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll play a gig and then we'll go to a place and sit down, have food, break out the guitar and play them a song and see if we can book it.
Have you played Birdsview Brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. I love them.
Okay. So I had Julie and Bill on. Okay. So Brewmaster Bill and one of his daughters, Julie, who just had a baby. Congratulations, Julie.
Congrats.
When they actually came on Veterans Day.
Oh, cool.
And I knew that Bill had served, and I said, well, speaking of Veterans Day, Bill, thank you for your service. And he kind of, like, Julie looked at me. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really something that he wanted to do.
Right.
So I think when he went to Vietnam, I think it was during the draft.
Same as my dad. Yeah.
Yes. And so how did your dad, did he have feelings about like that thank you for your service line?
Yes.
Or what was, okay.
So a story that I tell frequently at gigs, I like to involve my dad in shows. And so I vividly remember middle school, old Jim Everson there on Main Street, Veterans Day Assembly. My dad was there. And long story short, they asked all the veterans to stand up. I look out in the crowd, my dad's still sitting down. So I go home that day and I asked, why didn't you stand? And he kind of got teary-eyed and he said, I may have been in Vietnam, but I wasn't the guys that you see on the movie or anything like that. He worked on B-52 bombers and F-4 Phantom fighter jets. And at my middle school age, I chalked it up to, all right, whatever. Well, then fast forward, the first call that I made to my dad from Afghanistan got interrupted by us being mortared. So I hung up, and phones are cut off, and I did my job and dropped a couple bombs. And it, by chance, during that firefight, the weapon of choice that was sent to me was a B-52. And the next time I called my dad, I said, do you remember in middle school when you didn't stand up during the Veterans Day assembly because you weren't in the jungles and stuff? He said, oh God, yeah, I remember. You remember that? I said, yeah. I said, the reason I'm bringing it up is the other day when we got cut off, I had to go do my job. And the thing that was dispatched to me was the exact plane that you used to work on. And it got me thinking, if it wasn't for those people keeping that airplane in the air, I may not be calling you right now. And that really changed his perspective. But before that, he was, don't thank me. He was never, raise your hand, I'm a vet. He never went and got his free steak or anything. I don't do that, but I don't do that either. And I'm mixed about it. I appreciate, I'm not mixed about my reactions. I'm always appreciative because, I mean, if somebody's going to thank you for doing something, there's nothing wrong with that.
I always think about too when someone wishes you a Merry Christmas, even if you don't technically celebrate Christmas.
Absolutely.
Like, it's one human reaching out and making eye contact and speaking to another human, and we need more of that.
Yeah, people, I say Happy Hanukkah back to people, and I don't
Happy
partake.
Festivus, that's one, right?
Yeah, happy whatever you like. Cool. It's always, growing up, especially nowadays, it's unfortunate, but I always tell people, I said, it's an individual choice to be offended.
Yeah.
There's no book that's out there that says these are the things that you should be offended by. It's an individual choice. Just don't be offended. Screw them.
Yeah. There's a lot more important things in life to worry about.
Absolutely.
That's
like
how
yourself.
I think.
So, yeah, it's crazy.
All right. So we'll send people to your Facebook and Instagram page. They can come see you play, and we'll be on the lookout for that EP. Live for Today with Charlie Partin.
For sure.
All right. Well, thanks for coming over, man. That was
Thank
fun.
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.